Oklahoma is now the most frequent earthquake area in the world. That's according to the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, which this week directed 5 companies to limit operations at some injection wells. The directive follows a recent spike in earthquakes that has been shaking the ground in north central Oklahoma.
While Oklahoma has earned the dubious distinction as the world's earthquake capital, seismic activity in the state had recently begun to level off. During a panel discussion at the governor's energy conference this week, Oklahoma Geological Survey Director Jeremy Boak said the state has seen a 25% reduction in the number of earthquakes since July.
Is this a lull that ended last weekend when we had a substantial upswing in earthquake activity, or is it part of a longer-term pattern that might in part be a response to the activities the Corporation Commission has asked for?
After dozens of earthquakes shook the ground north of Medford, including a 4.1 quake last Saturday, the Commission announced it was expanding its efforts to reduce the risk of earthquakes potentially triggered by saltwater disposal wells. The agency directed 5 companies to reduce volumes being injected in 9 oil and gas wells near the Kansas border, with wells closest to the 4.1 tumbler cutting volumes by 50%, while other wells were directed to reduce their volumes by 25%. Stanford University professor Mark Zobak has done much of the research linking disposal wells to the surge in Oklahoma earthquakes. Zobak says injecting into Oklahoma's Arbuckle Formation at first seemed like the ideal answer to the question of what to do with the excess water produced by oil and gas activity.
It was absolutely perfect from a hydrologic context. It's porous, it's permeable, it's thick, it's even underpressured, so the water goes in under its own gravity. But unfortunately, by the fact that it sits right on top of the crystalline basement rock, the fluid pressure changes have access to faults in the basement, and that's what's caused the earthquakes.
We're disposing of, I think it's on the order of 3 million barrels a day. So if it were going the other way and it were petroleum, we'd be a major producer in the world.
Zobak says the key to reducing Oklahoma's earthquakes involves less injection in areas where the injected water has direct access to fault lines.
And the challenge is we really don't know where the faults are because they've not been mapped.
Energy companies have been sharing data with the Oklahoma Geological Survey in an effort to more accurately map fault lines, but Zobak believes the state ultimately will have to limit the volume of water being injected underground.
How to do that in a responsible way is the real question. If you just put a circle on a map and say, reduce the injection here, but you increase the injection just outside that area, you're not going to solve anything.
Oklahoma Oil and Gas Association President Chad Warmington says putting limits on injection wells will affect producers.
A significant volume reduction, particularly in the Miss and in the area that we're all talking about now, is going to dramatically impact the amount of production, dramatically impact the amount of taxes that paid, and is going to dramatically impact Oklahoma and how many dollars we get invested into those plays.
Despite the economic consequences, Warmington says the energy industry will continue to work with researchers to find a solution to Oklahoma's earthquake problem.
There's a direct correlation with making sure that the regulations, the budgeting process, the taxes that are put in place in this industry are all balanced. And I think we're taking a balanced approach to this as well, that we don't want to put the industry out of business. Clearly, it's not good for the state, but also we've got to emphasize priority number 1 is the safety of Oklahoma citizens, and there is a good way to do that.
Boak says the Oklahoma Geological Survey, the State Corporation Commission, and oil and gas producers are still trying to find that balanced solution.
When I first came on board, I said, if we could shut down 10 wells and the earthquake problem would go away, there'd be a small number of operators who are a little bit disgruntled. If it's got to be 100 wells, then there's going to be a fair number of people who aren't too happy about it. But if it's 1,000 wells, there's going to be a lot of unhappiness here.